Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Dialogue. I'm Taimur Shamil. Prime Minister Shahid Khaqan Abbasi is on his visit to Turkey to attend the D8 summit in Istanbul, which is taking place over there. And Prime Minister was addressing the D8 summit. He said that Pakistan has been fighting war on terror and terrorism and extremism, and Pakistan has been successfully fighting the terrorists. He emphasized on the need for cooperation and also to fight terrorism, which is a common foe, a common enemy for the regional countries, rather for the world as well. Pakistan has been fighting terrorism. Pakistan has been fighting the most notorious terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda, TTP, ETIM and many others. Pakistan has successfully launched military operations from Rahe-Ras, Rahe-Najat to Zarb-e-Azb, and recently the Raddul Fasad. The operation in Rajgal Valley also eliminated the hideouts of the terrorists over there, and many of these terrorists now have their safe havens inside Afghanistan. At the D8 summit, Prime Minister also emphasized on the importance of China-Pakistan economic corridor. This is a mega economic activity that Pakistan is a part of, and Pakistan and China are working on this mega economic activity. Pakistan also expects that other countries in the region would benefit from China-Pakistan economic corridor. But there is a threat, obviously, to CPEC, and the threat is terrorism. As I earlier said, terrorism needs to be handled, and for that, Pakistan expects its neighbors and also its friends in the region to collaborate with Pakistan, to cooperate with Pakistan to address this menace of terrorism and extremism. Prime Minister also emphasized on the need for better trade and economic activity in the region. Today we are going to discuss about his points at DA that he raised up over there: terrorism, countering terrorism, extremism, need for better economic activities, China-Pakistan economic corridor, and also OBOR. It is also interesting to note that Turkey is also hosting and has also initiated the Heart of Asia conference, which basically addresses the issue of Afghanistan and peace and stability in Afghanistan. Pakistan, since I earlier said, that has been fighting extremism and terrorism, Pakistan is directly affected by whatever happens in Afghanistan, directly and indirectly. And Pakistan wants peace in Afghanistan. How would Pakistan and Turkey and other regional countries would address the issue of terrorism inside Afghanistan? We're going to discuss about all this, and for that we have our guest in the studios. Our first guest is Mr. Javed Jadoon. He is a senior renowned political analyst. Sir, welcome to the program. Our second guest is Mr. Yasir Masood. He is an expert on foreign policy, and he is also a lecturer of foreign policy at National Defence University, Islamabad. Welcome to the program, Yasir. Our third guest is Dr. Amna Mahmood. She is also heading the Department of International Relations at Islamic University. She's an expert on the regional politics. Welcome to the program, Dr. Amna. Mr. Jadoon, starting with this recent development, Mr. Shahid Khaqan Abbasi, Prime Minister, is visiting Istanbul, Turkey, and he was addressing the D8 summit. The points that he raised up over there, 3 points primarily: terrorism, CPEC, and OBOR. This is something that Pakistan has been working on for the last, I would say, many years, and this is very important for Pakistan. How do you see these points and the need to raise these points at the D8 summit?
Thank you very much, Taimur. It was a very, very important platform for Pakistan because D8, we know that the 8 very, very influential Muslim countries over there as part of the D8, developing 8 countries, including Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Turkey, of course, is a big country, important country, Iran, Egypt, and Nigeria. And put together, they have about 1 billion population, and the trade volume with the rest of the world massively increasing. But unfortunately, intra-organization trade is very dismal, and PM pointed out as well. And PM said that it was projected to achieve the target of $800 billion trade, intra-organization trade, which seems to be a difficult task ahead. But as you mentioned at the outset, the most important things which Prime Minister mentioned were, because he was addressing the regional countries, and he was talking about the importance and significance of CPEC, which is a game-changing and fate-changing, has been described as a game-changing, fate-changing project, not only for Pakistan, but for the entire region. And if other countries like Turkey and like Malaysia, Indonesia, and Egypt and beyond, they start becoming part of this very important project, which is also called part of One Belt, One Road initiative, I think it is not going to create more connectivity between the regions, but tremendously enhance the opportunities of trade, investment, and even tackling, as you mentioned, the very, very critical issue, the key issue of terrorism. Because Pakistan is fighting, as Prime Minister said, Pakistan has successfully dealt with this menace of terrorism, and we have proved to the world that what Pakistan achieved is unparalleled. And of course, every day, Taimur, we see the bodies of our martyred soldiers coming to our homes, and the way we cleared the Waziristan region, I think, is unprecedented. Even beyond that, we have seen that 150 or 145,000 American and NATO troops couldn't achieve the objective which we have done in Pakistan. I think this should be an example for the rest of the world.
We're going to discuss about this very important point, that how more terrorist organizations have sprouted in Afghanistan. We see Daesh now over there, we see Jamaat ul-Ahrar and many other organizations. But before that, Yasir, talking about D8, most of the countries in D8, they're affected by terrorism. Egypt, for that matter, earlier, Bangladesh, Turkey, for that matter, a couple of months back. Pakistan is an example for all these countries to be seen that Pakistan has been successfully fighting terrorism and extremism. So this point, when PM raises this point at D8 summit, what is the importance of raising this point of countering terrorism at D8?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, Taimur. I think I have been saying this many a times through this platform, that Pakistan's anti-terrorism policy, or what we have achieved so far since we started to have a go against extremism and terrorism, I think so it's an epitome for the rest of the world, not only for the region. Like, for example, China, the whole Central Asia, even Russia, they are so much interested now that how Pakistan came out of this menace, because we know that we were up against unprecedented challenges, and at one point of time it looked like that it is no less than a Herculean task, that how we are going to deal with so much multifaceted threats we were confronted with. But see, it seems like it is beyond us now. We have gone through that phase, and that is why it has its importance not only for Pakistan but for the entire region, but for the entire world. That you see, I believe that Pakistan is probably only one country under the sun which has been inflicted under the menace of terrorism, and this is an example for the whole world. And let me tell you one more thing. We cannot only confine it to the military personnel. The whole nation stood against this menace, and the sacrifices of the masses are unprecedented. And this is a proof itself that how nations can stood up, and how nations can start from the rise from the dust of ashes. Right. So we have proved it to the world. So it has its importance. It has its importance for the entire D8 countries as well, so that they can learn from Pakistan, and Pakistan can always give them assistance wherever it is needed.
Dr. Amna, how would you evaluate the way Pakistan has been utilizing different platforms recently? I would say at the international platforms. Prime Minister at UNGA said that Pakistan would not become scapegoat first, one thing, and also he said that it's a failed strategy, US failed strategy in Afghanistan. He mentioned these 2 points. Later, Foreign Minister also made this very clear that Pakistan is not going to become scapegoat, and we won't listen to the do more mantra. Rather, it's for the international community to do more in Afghanistan. And now at D8 summit, the way Prime Minister has brought up this issue, and also I would say the way Pakistan has been fighting terrorism and extremism. So utilizing these platforms and making our voice heard, how do you see the strategy, Pakistan strategy, and our initiatives at different platforms?
I think it's a very timely strategy Pakistan adopted, and Pakistan has been doing all that for last 40 years. Since '79, Pakistan is directly fighting the wars which were previously due to the Cold War designs of the US, and it was due to the Cold War rivalry of US and Soviet Union. Pakistan became the frontline state, and after that US just washed its hands and went away from here and left everything to Pakistan, and we have to face everything, as Yasir mentioned, that we were the victim of terrorism, and it was unprecedented that as a very small nation faced all that, and despite that, they continued their internal progress and development too. And now Pakistan is being blamed by the US that you are the cause of all our failures. So this is the right time that Pakistan is pointing out and utilizing all its forum and asserting its geo-economic importance too. Previously, Pakistan foreign policy was all focused that we have a special geostrategic position. So in that perspective, Pakistan was used by the superpowers in their superpower Cold War rivalry, which was so-called ideological, but it was for the hegemony over the world. But right now, Pakistan is asserting its geo-economic position that we are not only important that we are on the verge of different regions, but we are also important, because we are facilitating the whole world a major route that is leading trade, economic development and prosperity from China onwards to 2 continents more, like the whole Asia and Africa and leading to Europe. So I think this is the best one. Secondly, which I wanted to point out right now, that whenever there is a military government, they are lacking the people's support. And right now we are having democracy, though there are a number of questions about our democratic stability and instability. That is a paradox. But right now we are having a democratic government elected by the people of Pakistan, having majority in the parliament. So that gives the power of people to the government when they speak on the behalf of 20 billion Pakistanis, and it's remarkable that Prime Minister speaks, and it is being a strong voice all over the world. And these forums, they are ready to listen Pakistan, because Pakistan is not claiming only, Pakistan has established all these things.
Right. Mr. Javed, talking about terrorism, that Prime Minister mentioned the point of terrorism and the way Pakistan has been fighting terrorism and the terrorists. We have launched many military operations from South Waziristan, North Waziristan, and Swat, and Rajgal Valley as well recently. This is very interesting to note that when Pakistan launched the military operation in Rajgal Valley, many officials in Afghanistan, the Kabul government, they criticized Pakistan's operation in the Rajgal Valley, and they made some statements that Pakistan should rather launch operation in Karachi, Lahore, and other places. My point is that when we are fighting the terrorists and the extremists successfully, we want our Afghan friends to reciprocate that. But we sort of at times see the blame game from the Afghan side and from the at times US side. How do you see this whole thing?
Taimur, I think it's a very important point. But first of all, we need to understand why Pakistan's sacrifices in the fight against terror have not been acknowledged the way they should have been acknowledged. I think there's not a single iota of doubt that Pakistan's key role is acknowledged by most of the important world capitals. But when it comes to dealing with their own failures, they start pointing their fingers toward Islamabad. And if you look at the statistics, in the recent past, we have seen that when Pakistan launched the operations in North Waziristan, it was even reported in some of the very, very influential American newspapers that it would be seen whether Pakistan can succeed over there, given the terrain and the difficulties any army could face over there.
Right.
And then what we saw was unparalleled success which Pakistan army achieved over there. Securing North Waziristan, South was already secured. And then you mentioned another important military operation in Rajgal Valley. Rajgal, we do understand, we in Pakistan know, and even now I think rest of the world knows that is probably one of the most difficult terrains we have. And even there, Pakistan succeeded in destroying the sanctuaries of the terrorists.
Just to add one thing, you mentioned about Waziristan. US senators were visiting Pakistan, and they were taken to Waziristan, and they said that they weren't expecting that they would be visiting Waziristan anytime soon. And I ask my guests this question very frequently, that can we expect that the Kabul government can take the senators or the, let's say, politicians to Paktia or Nuristan or anywhere else?
Exactly. That's the comparison, I think. And General McCain, who is the chairman of the Senate Committee of the Armed Forces, he twice visited, and he twice really lauded Pakistan's efforts as far as the destruction of the safe havens or whatever you call them, the safe sanctuaries are concerned. But on the contrary, what is happening inside Afghanistan? Taimur, the people in Pakistan know, but the global community, despite the fact they know it, but they try and ignore it. The fact is, when there were about 145,000 American and allied troops, NATO and other Western countries' troops stationed over there, everybody believed that at the end of the day, Americans and their allies would succeed in destroying the Taliban, and they will put up a government over there, a government of national consensus, and there would be no terrorism in the region. But what really happened? At the end of the day, the American troops cut loose and adopted the strategy of cut loose and run from the region. And now they have about 9,000 troops stationed over there, and very publicized strategy, the new strategy, what they talk about, the strategy towards Afghanistan, which also includes the blame game against Pakistan as well, is going to increase the number of troops by 4,000 or 5,000. That takes the total number to 13,000. In comparison, there were about 145,000 troops. They could not turn the tide of the war over there. And now the 13,000 troops, and we have seen in the recent weeks, the upscale in the terror incidents in Afghanistan.
That's right.
I think on a daily basis, we see a lot of people are being killed over there. Even the soldiers are dying and the people in the mosques are dying. While on the contrary, Pakistan, you see, becoming an island of stability as far as incidents which used to take place in Pakistan I think from 2008 to 13. Right. But this is the kind of achievement which Pakistan Army and the government of Pakistan have made. And now the most important point, for the first time, is so encouraging, Taimur, to see Pakistan's Foreign Office and the government of Pakistan and every institution speaking out loudly and not accepting, as you mentioned, the mantra of do more. Because it is now turn of the global community to do more for the region. And even today, I think now we see the Americans, they have started coming back. India, Taimur, India had no role to play in Afghanistan. They have no the territorial contiguity with Afghanistan. Pakistan has suffered most because of the ongoing conflict in Afghanistan. They started giving New Delhi more importance and expanded role in Afghanistan. While on the contrary, Pakistan's role started shrinking. And I think the better sense has prevailed in Washington. And now they realize that without Pakistan's key role in Afghanistan, you really can't bring about peace and stability over there.
This is a very important point of India's role in Afghanistan, larger role in Afghanistan. We'll talk about that. But before that, Yasir, as Jadun Saab said, that we have lost more than 70,000 innocent Pakistanis. We have lost $120 billion to our economy. We have been fighting these terrorists. But this is, I would say, the first time that we have given a very clear message at UNGA, and also the way Khwaja Asif, our Foreign Minister, he made some very clear statements while he was visiting US. We need some proactive diplomacy. We need to tell the world what we have been doing. Do you think that this is the right time that we should work on proactive diplomacy?
I think it should have been done much, much earlier, because you see, as you just mentioned, that we have lost more than 70,000 people, and then more than 120 billion loss of economy. So it should have been done earlier, but this is a critical time because we feel like we are at a critical juncture, especially after FPAC policy which emanated from the US administration. So yes, this is the right time. This is the right time because in this multipolar world order, the basic ingredient is to have better coordination, to have economic ascendance, to have trade and finance, economic sharing with each other, and that's how things can be resolved. So yes, Pakistan is playing its diplomatic cards very wisely, and it is the time for the whole world to realize, not only region, because only then we can achieve our objective. Because until and unless we do not iterate to the whole world that what we have been gone through, so that because if stance is coming from the US administration that Pakistan is harboring terrorism or there are sanctuaries inside Pakistan, I mean, we are the victims.
My question is, when you have 40% of your land controlled by the Taliban, how can you say that Pakistan or any other country is harboring terrorism? 40% of the land Khwaja Asif said in the US, is controlled by the Taliban in Afghanistan.
And as my Jadoon Saab just mentioned, that 150,000 US troops along with NATO troops, and then plus contractors, and then plus more mercenaries.
The whole machinery over there.
Yes.
Right?
They could not achieve 16 years of war on in Afghanistan, and they could not achieve anything. And when we say that they could not achieve anything, we mean to say that they could not achieve peace and stability in Afghanistan.
And rather we have something new now over
Yes.
there, and that is ISIS, Daesh.
Daesh presence is over there.
We'll continue our discussion on this whole point, and also that Prime Minister is on his visit to Turkey to attend the D8 summit in Istanbul. He raised the point of terrorism, counter-terrorism, and the way Pakistan has been successfully fighting terrorist organizations in the region. He also raised up the point that how important China-Pakistan economic corridor is for the regional economy. We're going to continue our discussion on all these points after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are discussing Prime Minister visit to Istanbul to attend the D8 summit over there. Dr. Amna, we were discussing about the D8 summit, Prime Minister's speech over there. He also mentioned about China-Pakistan economic corridor. And this is a mega economic activity, as we were discussing earlier. When we talk about China-Pakistan economic corridor, we also see how our allies and friends have been discussing China-Pakistan economic corridor. Turkey has been very supportive, other countries in the region as well. But there have been some mixed statements from the US side, from the US administration. When Khwaja Asif went to US to meet his counterpart, Mr. Tillerson, they said that Pakistan is an ally and that both countries would work together to address the issue of terrorism and extremism, and they would also work on bilateral trade as well. But after that, General Mattis, Defense Secretary, US Defense Secretary, he criticized China-Pakistan economic corridor, and he said that it goes from disputed territory. What do you think about these mixed statements from the US side? And also recently, Nikki Haley, the US permanent representative to UN, she said that US expects India to keep
an eye on Pakistan.
That is also very, I would say, alarming perhaps for Pakistan. So mixed statements, mixed mood from US, how do you see it?
I think it's a part of US strategy, as they always been doing with Pakistan or any other country. We cannot isolate one statement from the other. The previous statement you just mentioned by Mattis, Secretary of Defense, that is in line with the recent statement of their envoy in UN. But previously, if you see in May 2017, means this year, US was the part of Beijing statement which was given in favor of CPAC. And it shows US was having close coordination with the CPAC project, and they were watching it closely. And we cannot say, like happens in third world countries, that policy is isolated, defense policy is isolated with foreign policy or interior policy. It doesn't happen in US. All the foreign policy is made in US Security Council, and there all persons are on board, and policy is made by the president itself, and they have to defend it in US Senate too. So we cannot say that these statements are in isolation with each other, or we cannot say that they are contradictory. Apparently they are contradictory, and it's a part of US strategy that they deal from both sides. They offer you carrot, and at the same time they show you the stick too. So this is the time when they are pointing out that this is the CPAC is passing through that disputed territory of Gilgit-Baltistan. They are actually realizing, China and Pakistan, that we can interrupt this project at any time. But they cannot actually. This is just a part of their strategy to keep China and Pakistan both under pressure. And since all the panelists were discussing before that they have assigned this role as a watchdog to India now,
right,
which was previously the closed, most allied ally Pakistan was previously having that role. And for that purpose, they are strengthening India. They are making their strong presence in Afghanistan, and now India is responsible for keeping US interest in India, in Afghanistan. And that is because of the fact that Afghanistan.
That's what US wants India to have a perhaps larger presence in Afghanistan. But do you think that Indian authorities would be naive enough that they would make their presence in Afghanistan? They might be having few consulates over there, but going into Afghanistan and working over there is a totally different ball game altogether.
Yeah.
Soviets haven't been able to do anything substantial in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
US didn't. So what would India do?
But actually, USSR role and India's role is totally different. India is watching their interest in Afghanistan, not US interest. But now, at this moment of time, both interests are coincided. India is playing their economic role there, development role there, and they are earning money from that. And they are controlling Pakistan's western border through Afghanistan. It is their interest to control and intervene through our western border in Baloch area and Pakhtun. And you see the incident of a few days back when there was a terrorist activity in KP,
right,
and then in Balochistan there was a crossfire by Iranian authorities. They claimed that there were some terrorists. They were trying to intrude into Iranian side, and that's why. And you know that these all activities are Indian sponsored. They are not done by Pakistani, even not by Baloch or Pakhtuns. So it is Indian interest to stay there, and they are apparently training Afghan police and Afghan armies, and they are doing development projects. But you know, everyone knows that they are having no direct influence on Taliban, and on the areas which are controlled by Taliban, India has no influence and they cannot control that. Right now, this is the right strategy Pakistan has adopted, that they are directly communicating with Afghanistan, and it would be the right strategy that I would suggest as political analyst and professor, teacher of international relations, that Pakistan should isolate its Afghan policy from Indian policy and US policy. We should communicate, and we should develop a sort of confidence building with the Afghan government directly. And when they would be knowing that Pakistan is dealing directly and there is no communication gap at government level, at forces level, and peoples to peoples level, that would be beneficial for both Afghanistan and Pakistan in the long run.
Even the people of Afghanistan, Mr. Jadun, they want to open to the rest of the world. It's been more than, I would say, 30 years now since they have been experiencing this whole war thing in Afghanistan. Recently also, the former Afghan president, Mr. Karzai, was pretty critical of the US presence in Afghanistan and the US strategy in Afghanistan. Do you think that Pakistan should also tap the potential over there that sides with Pakistan? Because recently many young people in Afghanistan, they have received, they have been coming to Pakistan, and they have received scholarships to Pakistan. They are attending universities in Pakistan. We should tap that potential over there that sides with Pakistan.
Taimur, I think now the leadership in Afghanistan, they have started doubting US intentions as far as peace and security is concerned. Look the way President Ashraf Ghani is changing his stance towards Pakistan, particularly after the visit of Army Chief to Kabul. And you pointed out the statement of the former President Karzai. He even strongly criticized the US approach, the fresh approach towards Afghanistan. I think they were expecting much bigger troop surge as far as the decision was concerned. And ultimately, they ended up with only about 5,000, 4,500 troops surge over there. And they know that this is not going to make a difference as far as efforts to bring back normalcy is concerned. And now, the other factor is the issue of massive and rampant corruption in Afghanistan. Mr. Karzai's government was seen as one of the most corrupt governments in the region. And despite the fact that hundreds of billions of dollars were flown into Afghanistan, they spent about over $1 trillion on war effort and equal amount in the name of reconstruction of Afghanistan. And now we see the reversal of that particular policy. President Trump in his policy address said that we are not in the business of reconstruction in Afghanistan. Now we are in the business of killing terrorists. And this is, I think, Taimur, a paradigm shift as far as the previous approach was concerned, where they wanted to spend money over there, build roads, schools, colleges, healthcare, educational facilities, etc. And now I think the paradigm shift is towards containing the insurgency, which cannot be done given the amount of, as you said, 40%. Some estimates say that maybe it's 55%. 55% being controlled by Taliban and 45% being controlled by the government troops. Given this particular shift as far as security paradigm is concerned, I think it would be extremely difficult for 13,000 American troops or the allied troops to maintain peace and security in Afghanistan. And secondly, Pakistan has done what Americans couldn't do in Afghanistan. Taimur, they spent huge amount of money on war efforts and reconstruction. Now, what are they going to tell the American people? That after fighting 16 years of the insurgency in Afghanistan and spending huge amount of money over there, there is nothing to show to the American people, this is what we have achieved. That is the reason they have started scapegoating Pakistan. That is because of Pakistan, Americans and the allied countries couldn't achieve what they wanted to achieve in Afghanistan. And Taimur, given the current situation, on the ground we see that our terrorists, those who crossed over into Afghanistan, now they are being killed by the American drones. Who is providing the safe havens to terrorists? There is not a single terrorist who is killed on this part of the border, Afghan border. Recent drone strikes primarily struck the targets inside Afghanistan. And the terrorists killed are those who ran away from North Waziristan. And they took sanctuaries over there. And you rightly pointed out now the different dimension of Daesh as well. And because of the Daesh presence, even Russians are very alarmed. Russians believe that now there's a buffer between mainland Russia and Afghanistan, and that's Central Asia. Once you infiltrate into Central Asia, then ultimately, because of their own problems inside Russia, like the issues of Dagestan and Chechnya, they believe that once Daesh gets a stronghold inside their own territory, it would be extremely difficult to contain them. So I think that is the very reason that Russians have started taking more interest in the region, particularly in Afghanistan. And now, the convergence of views in Islamabad, Beijing, and Russia, they are being seen in Washington as an effort to fill the vacuum in Afghanistan, which Americans deliberately created. And now I think they're coming back to refill this vacuum. That is why I think Pakistan is once again the map, and they started believing that without Pakistan's key role, peace in Afghanistan is an impossibility.
Pakistan is indispensable, Mr. Yasir, and this is very clear. Talking about the regional cooperation, as Mr. Jadoon said, that Russia, China, Pakistan and other regional countries, Iran for that matter, they are trying for peace and stability in Afghanistan. Do you think that now the regional countries would fill the vacuum in Afghanistan if US, let's say, leaves Afghanistan, and also that US is looking at India to fill that vacuum? How do you see the regional dynamics changing?
Yes, first of all, we need to take this into account that the Trump's attitude right now against the Afghanistan or the policies which are coming from US administration, it looks like they are looking for some sort of an exit, because we have seen, and it is an open reality to them as well now, that stay in Afghanistan, US stay in Afghanistan over 16 years is a complete fiasco, because they could not achieve anything. So it also shows the same Nixonian attitude in Vietnam War. So it seems that they are looking for different solution, and that's why they are making Pakistan as a scapegoat, because it seems they are panicky and they are looking for some sort of an exit from this region. Coming back to regional cooperation, I see that Afghanistan is, the location of Afghanistan is at a critical juncture, because you see it's a gateway to whole Central Asia and then to Russia as well. And then in today's world order, it is very important for any state in the region to be more secure and to be more peaceful, because if there is chaos, if there is disorder, and if there is turmoil in one part of the country, it will have its negative and drastic implications in the entire region. And that's where it is very important for China, for Russia, as well as for Pakistan, because we see that the whole region is flourishing now as far as economy is concerned. But if there is a turmoil and chaos in Afghanistan, it will create problem. It is like a downward spiral for the whole region. And that's where I see the importance of regional guild is very critical, especially at this point of time. Otherwise, situation would go from bad to worst. For example, if US troops pulls out their troops from Afghanistan and leaves Afghanistan in a ditch, so how we are going to fill the vacuum? This would be another daunting task for the entire region. So that's why they are preempting the situation, and that's why China, Russia, all the main stakeholders, including Pakistan, they are ready to fill that vacuum. And I think so that Afghanistan on its own must be concerned about its own disorder or civil war if US leaves from Afghanistan. Rather, we as regional players are more concerned. Afghanistan should also be concerned. So the first thing they should do, that there has to have an intra-dialogue inside Afghanistan, because different groups have different analogies. They have different interpretations as far as extremism and terrorism is concerned. And especially Taliban, which are controlling, as my colleague just mentioned, about 55% of the land in Afghanistan. So until and unless they don't bring them on the table, on negotiation table, things will be in the same way. So if they start this intra-dialogue inside Afghanistan, the same will be reflected in the whole region.
We have been trying, Dr. Amna, Pakistan has been trying to facilitate the talks between the Taliban and the Kabul government. But at the same time, we weren't given much credit for that. Mullah Akhtar Mansoor was killed in a drone strike, and then things went worse in Afghanistan. Pakistan's initiative to bring peace and stability in Afghanistan, how do you see it? And the talks primarily between the Taliban and the Kabul government.
It is inevitable, and ultimately you has come to that solution. How long they would take? They have taken already 17 years, 16 years, more than 16 years. And they are unable to manage the situation in Afghanistan. And Pakistan has achieved what Pakistan wanted to. We have been fencing our border with Afghanistan, and as a result, you see that the drone attacks now are not conducted within Pakistan, not in Waziristan. They are being conducted in Afghanistan. It means that all the terrorists are there, and US has to manage them, and now they cannot use Pakistan as a scapegoat anymore, because terrorists are not transported from Pakistan. Whatever we have done, terrorists have now stationed in the territory which
rather
belongs
the
to
leadership
Afghanistan.
of TTP and Jamaatul Ahrar, they're in Afghanistan.
They are in Afghanistan. So, if US really wanted to have a solution, they have to come to the negotiation table with Afghanistan, not only with the Afghan government. And it is inevitable for the Afghan government to sit with the Taliban also, because there cannot be any solution to the internal turmoil of Afghanistan without taking all stakeholders on board. And one of the stakeholders is obviously Taliban. Now the situation, as Yasser mentioned, that there is a complex geopolitics, and I would a little defer to Jadun Saab that US deliberately created power vacuum. That was created due to the underestimation of Russian role by the US, that Russia is asserting its role in the region because they consider that Central Asia and Afghanistan is their area of influence. And they are also feeling the pain of their wounds given by the US during Afghan war and that led to the breakup of Soviet Union. They are not forgetting. And they are constantly supporting turmoil and anti-US forces in Afghanistan too. So Pakistan, it is just that this at the moment of at this moment that when Pakistan, Russia and China are in convergence, but they would not be in the long run, because Pakistan interest is the peace in Afghanistan, and that is not Russian interest. Russian interest is to push all anti-Russian forces to Afghanistan, continue to be a counterforce to US presence there, but saving Central Asia from terrorist forces and organizations.
Well,
so this is the right time that Pakistan and Afghanistan both should be on one page, and they should sit together, peace in Afghanistan. And if US is interested to have peace and at least to save their skin from anti-NATO strikes, they should come on the negotiation table. That is the only solution.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Jadun. Pleasure having you on the program. Mr. Yasser, thank you for joining us. Dr. Amna, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. We discussed about Prime Minister's visit to Istanbul, where he's there to attend the D8 summit. Prime Minister raised up three very important points. One was the counter-terrorism strategy that Pakistan has been fighting terrorism very successfully, and also Pakistan is working on China-Pakistan economic corridor, also on One Belt, One Road, and we also expect our other friends and countries in that region that they would benefit from China-Pakistan economic corridor, and also they can see how Pakistan has been fighting terrorism. Thank you for watching today's program. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.